Hey traders, welcome back. Today is September 19th, 2024. I am taking a few minutes to go over a trade setup that I was looking for at the beginning of the market. Obviously looking at SPY, QQQ, ES, and NQ. My trades are always on QQQ. That's primarily what I trade. And that's because I know that QQQ does a good job of, respecting fair value gaps. And even SPY, ES, and NQ help guide my trades. A lot of the trades I take aren't necessarily just off of QQQ levels, but others around the market because, if ES, for instance, has a level that holds, it's likely going to push QQQ up as well. Now, today was there was a specific setup that I was looking for and something that I see around the market all the time. It may have trapped traders into going short, and I'm going to walk through exactly what I saw and what I was really looking for to go long today. Now, when we woke up, there was a big gap up in the market. We had their interest rate news yesterday, and I always try to inform new traders at least that whenever there's any type of FOMC news, or I like to use the NVIDIA, earnings, events and stuff like that, stay away from it. Honestly, if you want to throw $100 in there and do a YOLO call, that's one thing, but I wouldn't bet a large amount of your portfolio into a lotto call on these FOMC moves or any of these, earnings. It's just not worth it. What you do, the best thing to do, and this kind of separates experienced traders with new traders. The new trader is always trying to hit that home run, trying to predict the move and wake up with a $10,000 profit from a trade they took the previous day. The moves that are created by these events create opportunities. Now, yesterday, I totally stayed away from anything that went on because I didn't have any interest in trading while Powell was speaking. So I was kind of keeping an eye on the market to see what it was doing, but I wasn't at all interested. I wasn't like actively watching charts and looking for a trade opportunity. I wanted to let the market do its thing, settle down, and we woke up today with a big gap up, and I was looking to just take a trade. There were some bearish fair value gaps that we were rejecting yesterday, and we woke up today over top of those. We cleared those, we've mitigated those, and at that point, there wasn't any bearish fair value gaps in our way, and that means that if we have nothing but bullish fair value gaps below, we look to take a long position. We look for a pullback into a fair value gap and go long. That's the mentality that we have to have. I mentioned in stock twits specifically that there was bullish fair value gaps everywhere, and we don't have a bearish fair value gap on the market until I think 480. I'm sorry, 494 is the next bearish fair value gap on QQQ, and then 20,400 on NQ. So we look for a pullback to a bullish fair value gap, and we look to take the long position. So let's jump in here. Now, at the start of the market, before the market opened, I was really, here's what I see, okay? So we see the big gap up from yesterday, right, in pre-market. And when I readjust my levels, every morning I wake up, I clear all of my fair value gaps because they could have changed. And I want to mark out the new ones that were created, whether on NQ, ES. I changed the previous day high, previous day low. And I specifically tailor my charts to what is actively present, which fair value gaps we have present. I remove all the old ones. If there's, the bearish fair value gaps that were mitigated, I cleared those all out. And this is what my chart looked like as of this morning. So when I see this, right, the first thing I see is that we have a bullish fair value gap sitting here on SPY, QQQ, ES, and NQ. So we have some area to support a long trade. Now, here's the fair value gaps that we had on which, let's look at the time frames and see where these are. So on QQQ, we have a 5-minute bullish fair value gap here. and then there is a 15-minute bullish fair value gap here on SPY and ES and NQ. And I think there was a 30-minute one as well. Yeah. NQ has, or I'm sorry, ES has this 30-minute fair value gap. Now, this is the level that I mentioned in StockTwits, is at the 5,763 is the level that I like. Okay. Now, if you go over to StockTwits, this is the first message that I posted for the morning. Okay, is that we have bullish fair value gaps all over. Nothing heavy until we get to the 494, which is what I mentioned, and on QQQ, and then 20,400 on NQ. So I like this 5,763 level on ES. Let's see if we can get a move down to previous day high on SPY and then wick up over that and close above the 570 fair value gap. Okay. Now, that was at 724, just 6 minutes before the market opened. What I specifically saw was we have this bullish fair value gap, which we wicked off in pre-market. Well, that created the fair value gap. But what I specifically saw was that underneath this fair value gap, we have previous day high on SPY. Now, why was I specifically targeting that? And why was I focused on that? Well, what I wanted to see was that since the previous day high was so close to this bullish fair value gap, I've seen this setup time and time again, that one, we want to see price pull back to this 569 area. We want to see the pullback to this 480 area. We want to see a pullback to the 5,763 and then this NQ level. Now, NQ didn't pull back to that level, but the point is that being that we want to see one or several of these tickers pull back to their bullish fair value gap, that would mean that if SPY has to move back and QQQ have to move back, it's possible that SPY may break below this, because if QQQ is pulling back to this fair value gap, it's possible that the move that is required for QQQ to pull back to this level is going to push SPY below this fair value gap. Why? Well, here's where the fair value gap. See this candle here on SPY? That started the fair value gap, and that was at 569.62. But now look here at where that exact candle is here on QQQ. That's above this fair value gap. So that means that if QQQ does pull back to this fair value gap, it's likely that SPY is going to go a bit lower. Because of this previous day high, which is a very key level, I talk about this all the time. Previous day high and previous day low, they present opportunities for trades all the time. And if you're not watching it, you must chart it. I don't know that I wouldn't say that you take trades off of previous day high and previous day low every single day, but I would certainly put it on your chart because they present opportunities when they're in areas around fair value gaps or they're within fair value gaps. Those are considered high probability trades. So when price moves into a fair value gap with previous day high or previous day low, that can present a great opportunity and is a high probability trade, especially when you see high volume off those levels. So anyway, in order for QQQ to come back to this level, right, it's possible and likely that SPY is going to break below this fair value gap. And with that said, I wanted to see price come down to this previous day high, wick off of this, and then close above the median of this, or close out of the bullish fair value gap. And if I see that with volume, then that would imply that, the buyers, there's buying pressure here, right? And it's basically two things that's supporting this trade. It's the previous day high and then this bullish fair value gap. The key here, guys, is watch the higher time frames. Okay, I'm going to get into why. So let's play this. And I'm on the 2-minute chart. So market opens, market drops down a bit, and this is exactly what I wanted to see. Okay, now price comes into this fair value gap on SPY, and QQQ is moving up. So we can see that SPY and ES are weaker than QQQ and NQ, as we can see, because they're kind of trading in opposite directions right now. Now I want to slow this down just a bit. Okay. So what do we have right now? As the market opens, we see SPY come down into this bullish fair value gap, and these are just this is a 2-minute fair value gap that QQQ is moving off of. All right, let's continue. Now my trade plan hasn't changed here, right? The point that what I want to see is a move down into this previous day high. Did I know that was going to happen? No, I don't. But it's just a setup that because again, if we've got this fair value gap here that I'd like to see QQQ move into, and likely will because the market is seeking liquidity. So price is going to likely come down into here. But as I explained earlier, in order for it to move down this far, and as you can see, look where we are. Look how far we have to go, right? I can use the measurement to see how far we have to go back down into this fair value gap to grab liquidity and move higher. Look where we are on SPY. We're already at the median of this. So it's very clear that we're going to likely break below this. Same thing with ES, right? ES is at this median of this fair value gap. And NQ and QQQ both have a lot of space. There's still some room for it to move back down. Now, could price bounce off of this fair value gap and move higher? Of course it could. And that's something that we can look for. So I was actively watching that as well. Let's continue on. Let's see what happens. Okay, we break right below it. Okay. Now, I was actively watching ES break down below, and this is maybe where traders got trapped. Okay. Now, here in real time, as I'm watching this, price comes down and comes down to the previous day high. All right. Now, this is where I say on StockTwits, let's see if SPY previous day holds. I will watch for a wick back up over the fair value gap above. Same on ES. So here's the bullish fair value gap that I'm referring to. Okay. And we want to see if this holds. All right. We want to see if this previous day high holds. Now I'm actively watching volume, right? And I want to see what the volume candles look like. I want to make sure that we see high volume, which implies that there's buyers pushing price up. So let's move along here. Now I'm going to switch to the 3-minute. Okay, we broke down below. It's created a bearish fair value gap here. Okay, now I'm okay with that. We break below the the fair value gap on SPY and ES, but this is where traders may have went short. Okay, because they may have a level here. They see it break down, but maybe they're not watching this previous day high. Okay, we'll go back to the 2-minute chart and move forward. All right, now this candle here was where I saw that there was buying pressure. Okay, I saw this 2-minute candle here that implied there was buying pressure. Look at the volume on ES. Here's what's important. Look at the volume on ES. Look how much volume that is. Okay, this is this red bar. Look at how much volume's here. Now it's not super high. It's not extremely high, but it's ES. If you compare this volume to another, sell bar, let's see this previous sell bar here. Okay, look at how much volume that is, this bar here, and compare that to this, right? If we see this much volume and there's selling pressure, again, as I explain all the time, then we should see a similar bar like this on a move down. But the fact that we see price move down and then buyers push price up, that implies that there's buying pressure there. So now my eyes are still set on this level. That ES level is basically previous day high. I just don't have it marked. It's SPY. There's buying pressure in this area. Now I had mentioned, it's interesting because I had mentioned on let's see if this holds. I'll watch for a wick back up. Now at 749, I say careful shorting here. This is the setup I'm looking for. There's buying pressure here at previous day high on SPY, and that was at 749. You look at the chart, and that was at 748, 749. Now, not to call anyone out, there was a specific user that had said, "Oh, it was bad timing," right? Which not necessarily, right? Bad timing on to post that, right? Well, guess what? Not really. We were in a bullish fair value gap now on QQQ and NQ. Still wouldn't short here. Why? Look at this. As price held this level and then started to move down, guess what? That move down All that did was bring QQQ right into the bullish fair value gap. Exactly what I wanted to see. And you can see the same thing on NQ, right? So yes, it broke below previous day high, but if you're not looking at fair value gaps, this is how you get stuck in trades. If you're not watching fair value gaps, you don't know where the liquidity is. Exactly what happens. Price breaks below previous day high on SPY, but that moved right into QQQ. Okay, and those that see the break below previous day high and don't pay attention to fair value gaps likely went short on this. Okay, and this is where the higher time frames are important, because as soon as you see, a break below this on the low time frames, you go chase that trade. You're like, okay, I'm short, and then watch what happens. Let's move this forward a little bit. Now, here we go. Now, those candles right there, okay, these three candles right here equate to this type of candle on the 5-minute. So what do we learn from this already? Remember, the delta volume delta candle represents, that horizontal line represents where all the buying volume is, okay? Where all the trading activity is. That's below current price. Current price is right here on a red candle. It's a below current price. That's buyers are lazy pushing price up. Look at the volume. Okay, I like that volume. Okay, this red candle on the move down is a pretty big candle. Look how much volume that has. This bar right here, we have more volume than that. Now, is that the most bullish candle? No, but that's where the 15-minute comes into the time frame. It comes into the picture. Look at the wick off of previous day high, right? It did break below, but we're holding it. And I want to see this 15-minute hold above this fair value gap. And that's exactly what it did. Same thing here. What do we see on QQQ? We see price move off of this fair value gap, and we're holding that well. That's the type of candle that I want to see. NQ or ES, same thing. It's the same thing as SPY, right? Good volume, great volume. Now, here's what's important too. Look at the candle here and look at the previous volume, right? 15-minute candle. Look at this large move down, and then look at the comparison. Now, some people have a tough time interpreting how do you understand? Like, I don't understand, Darren. I'm not really too sure I understand how you interpret this volume. If you look at the volume on this particular candle, okay, look at it created that much volume, right? 100,000, okay, 100,000, shares transacted in that time frame. The next candle had 93,000 shares traded in that. Look at in comparison, they are very, very similar. Do they have to be the same? No, but they're very similar. But are these similar candles? No, not at all. This is a very bearish candle with this much volume. And then when you look at this candle, right, it has almost the same amount of volume. But if there were selling pressure, you would see a similar candle. You don't see similar volume. You don't see the similar candle. You see the similar volume, but not the same candle. That's because there's buying pressure here. Sellers push price down. Buyers push price up. This is where all the trading activity is. This is where all the trading activity is. This is where all the trading activity is. Same here. That is exactly the setup I was looking for. The higher time frames give you a better, insight into what is happening. Yes, I trade off the lower time frames. I use those for entries, but you have to pay attention to the higher time frames as well. Because in this particular case, I'm sure there's people that went short off of that break of previous day high, not knowing that QQQ had a fair value gap there. All right. I don't know why let's try to reload this. The point here is, and this is where we are trading live right now. Okay. So we saw on the 15-minute, the bullish push over previous day high on SPY, held the fair value gap. Same thing on ES. And that candle that pushed off of previous day high also held the fair value gap. That was a picture perfect setup. If you look at SPY, or you look at QQQ and you look at NQ, They're identical. And this is exactly what we wanted to see. So the setup here was a move down into previous day high, hold that previous day high, wick back up over the fair value gap for a move higher. And those who saw that breakdown early in the morning likely went short there, but you have to pay attention to the higher time frames. And this is exactly the setup that I was looking for. We go back to StockTwits, we can see that, you know, I wanted to make sure that we were be careful on the short there, because that's not where you want to short, because QQQ was just going into that bullish fair value gap. And then I had mentioned, let's watch for the close above the fair value gap on SPY. That's exactly what we got. We closed above the fair value gap on SPY, and price just moved higher. Okay, and that's exactly what I was looking for. I hope this makes sense. This was the perfect setup that I wanted to see. And I turned on the 9 EMA. I as a day trader and a zero DTE trader, I turned on the 9 EMA. I set it the time frame to 2-3 minutes max, and I usually wait for a break over that with volume. I took my first sell when we broke below it here, and then I still have some runners holding. It's a great trade, folks. I try to deliver great content on candles, volume, trading the fair value gaps in conjunction with the previous day high, previous day low. Hope this video is very insightful and very helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, please comment on this video, and I'll catch you next time.